This is the worst thing that could have happened, increasing corporation tax now. From 19% to 25%, almost one-third in one swoop. This is the first increase in corporation tax we've had in decades. And when George Osborne reduced corporation tax down to 20%, then 19%, was going to go down to 17%. He actually had an ambition to take it down to 15%. In fact, the Chancellor, current Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, wanted corporation tax to be as low as 15%. Instead, what do? We do exactly the opposite. And the record has shown when the corporation tax was reduced, our tax take actually went up. So to try and get this £18 billion extra per year, which is what it ended up being by increasing corporation tax from 19 to 25, is so short-sighted. It is literally killing the goose that lays the golden egg. Because what you're doing is you're hampering the growth, you're hampering our recovery from the worst crisis in the Second World War. And what's really important is you're hampering inward investment from abroad. Having a high rate of corporation tax sends out a bad signal. We've seen that with AstraZeneca deciding to invest in Ireland next door, 12.5%, half our rate now. And the Chancellor, Prime Minister say, oh, we've got the lowest corporation tax headline rate compared with the rest of the G7. Well, what about the OECD? We're now above the OECD average. We need to be competitive because as an economy, we have not done well. If you look at it since the financial crisis, our average UK household income, just look at the Financial Times today, it's actually stagnated for 15 years. If you look at our growth in the UK in real wages, it's been, if you look at the whole list of countries, with Lithuania at the top of the list, Latvia and Estonia, Poland, we're right down, UK way down the list. I'm sorry, we shouldn't be there. We need to grow this economy. We need to be bolder. We had a shock last September with the irrational exuberance of Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng. With their best of intentions, they went about it the wrong way. The OBR, and I said this in my speech on the budget in the House of Lords on Thursday, I said, what's the bet? If Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng had taken the trouble and care to have the OBR prepare a report to back up their plans, the debt to GDP, which is going to be almost 100% 5 years from now, would not be that much higher than Jeremy Hunt's plan. But they didn't do that. So we are now stuck in a situation where we've got taxes going up when we should be putting taxes down. And we've got an economy really struggling, businesses struggling, citizens struggling. And please don't get me wrong. There's some good things in the budget as well. The replacement of the super deduction, which I was worried would be taken away with increasing corporation tax, a double whammy. That has not happened in that they have, as Rishi Sunak promised me one-to-one, they put in a 100% tax relief for investment in plant and machinery and technology, and I'm grateful for that.
I was going to say that was the briefing that the Treasury people put out almost the moment Jeremy sat down, was to say that actually a lot of people won't have to pay this tax because if they do the right thing and invest and put in new machinery and improve productivity, they won't be paying a penny piece extra in tax. But what you were saying earlier that I want to underline for the people who are kind enough to listen to and watch our conversation is that for multinational companies like AstraZeneca, who chose not to come to the UK but went to Ireland instead, they do literally sit down and say, look, if we set up shop in France, it's going to cost us X. If we set up shop in Holland, it's going to cost us Y. And on that basis, amongst many other things, they come to a judgment. That is why you, let me be absolutely crystal clear, are saying that this Tory government has shot itself in the foot in terms of international competitiveness.
Without a doubt, this is a very, very bad move. And to try and say we're trying to be fiscally prudent, well, you've stabilized things since September when we had that shock, when the market did not accept Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng's plans. And we got out of that, and to the credit of Rishi Sunak and to Jeremy Hunt, they have stabilized things. There's not long to go before the next election. Now they need to grow the economy. They've got to show that they can grow the economy. Instead, you've got personal allowances that are frozen until 2028 with inflation that has touched 10%. That's a huge tax increase. It's up to more than £500 per individual. That's right there. So the tax increase is not just corporation tax. Individuals are also having their taxes increased. And the government's doing its best to help with energy support for individuals, which has been extended. There's been energy support for businesses. Then the childcare, what a good initiative. But when is it coming in? It's
Yeah.
not starting until next year. Then it's being phased in. Then eventually it'll come in 2025. The same thing with the lifelong learning account. We desperately need to have lifelong skilling because people in jobs today will have to reskill within 10 years. 90% of the workforce has to be retrained. Businesses have to invest £130 billion more. But if you have this lifelong learning account, which is a great thing, announced a long time ago, by the way, not this budget, more than a year ago it was announced. When is it starting? 2024. Why not start now? So
Do you think that
there doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency.
Yeah, the 11 billion or so spent on the pension reforms, was that a little bit of unfocused exuberance, and you've just given a compelling list of things that you would rather have got done and got done sooner? Do you think the pensions reforms was a misjudgment?
That was targeted very specifically at people like senior doctors and consultants and surgeons, where there was a complete disincentive to carry on working because the tax was so punitive. And this limit, by the way, was brought down from 1.8% to 1 million by George Osborne over a decade ago. And now we need to make sure that those people who are crucial to our health service, which has been under so much pressure, which is still under pressure, needs a huge amount, not only of investment, but there's a lot of reform that's needed for our National Health Service. And if you, on top of that, have crucial individuals who are retiring when they shouldn't be, and you're doing something to incentivize them to do that, well, that should be done. And that's what why the government has done this. But it's been spun in a way that, oh, this is helping the richest, but it's helping some very key individuals who need that help to stay in the workforce.